It was a beautiful morning on the island of Sodor. Thomas the tank engine's blue paint sparkled in the sunshine as he puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clarabelle.
Hello, Season 2, and we're already starting off with a new terrain? All right. So we start off with Thomas traveling his branch line when he reaches his next station where Percy and Toby were talking. That day, Thomas must have gotten a wax coat or an extra polish finish, because his iconic blue livery stood out among everything else. Percy and Toby were also impressed with the shiny look. Unfortunately for Thomas, he took their compliments a little too far and decided to further boost his image. Already, someone's funnel is getting too big for their boiler. Percy and Toby, on the other hand, were proud of their paintwork too. This, of course, didn't fly with Blue Tankhead.
Well, anyway, huff, Thomas. Blue is the only colour for a really useful engine. Everyone knows that. Percy said no more. He just grinned at Toby.
Well, at least Toby and Percy know who's right. Thomas is kind of living in the clouds, I guess. It doesn't even make a lot of sense as to why Thomas would feel the need to impress upon his two friends that blue is the only right color. I could see if Thomas was trying to convince a novice engine who just arrived on Sodor, but by now Percy and Toby were already household names. So, as to what he was trying to accomplish seems pointless. Later that day, Thomas was resting on a siding while Percy came by with some trucks to fill with coal. However, the trucks Percy was filling were none other than the troublesome trucks, and this time they wanted to have some fun. For once. Before both engines could react, Percy moved too far back and the hopper started dropping its load.
The last load poured down. Help! I'm choking! Cried Thomas. Get me out! Percy was worried, but he couldn't help laughing.
Unfortunately, it was really too late to do anything. With the hopper continuing to pour more coal onto the rails, the mound became so high it almost buried Thomas. As for Percy finding the situation funny, I see how people could relate to this. When a non-fatal accident occurs and a big mess is made, people can't help but laugh sometimes, because some situations are so unusual and occasionally coincidental. However, Thomas did not find this funny at all. He even went so far to accuse Percy of causing the issue, when this wasn't determined whether it was the troublesome trucks or it was actually him. Making things worse was that Thomas could not be cleaned quick enough for his next train. So instead, Toby took Annie and Clarabelle. Hold up. Wait a second, did you see that? If not, let's watch it again. Look, it's a troublesome truck with an actual gray face, not just eyeballs and a mustache. That's right, and here we just got a glimpse of just how self-destructive these rolling milk crates are going to be. As for later that night, the two tank engines weren't speaking to each other.
Thomas was grumpy in the shed that night. Toby thought it a great joke, but Percy was cross with Thomas for thinking he had made his paint dirty on purpose.
It's funny how Toby is just playing the median here. Yeah, don't mind me, guys. I'll keep you two from blowing steam at each other. The morning later, Thomas was feeling a tad cheerier. As for Percy, he just had returned with some trucks and looked extra tired. Nearby was a siding that had a water tower. Wanting to rejuvenate himself, Percy went for a drink, only to discover he couldn't stop, for whatever reason. So now Thomas felt better because now it was Percy's turn to be covered in coal dust after ramming through the buffers. What wasn't explained was if the trucks were the cause for Percy not being able to stop, just like the last time. Instead, the story reads, suddenly, Percy found that he couldn't stop. Okay, whatever that means. I guess it was a freak accident? But with now both engines taking turns getting covered in coal dust, Thomas felt even with Percy. Later that night, though, both reconciled with each other.
I didn't cause your accident on purpose, Thomas. Of course, replied Thomas, and I'm sorry I was cheeky. In future, we'll both be more careful of coal.
Which honestly isn't logical. How about, in the future, we'll both be more careful in general? The topic of coal had almost nothing to do with anything in this story, other than both engines getting covered in its dust one way or another. This wasn't exactly an episode I'm very big on. The conflict that is created between the two friends is all based on unclear assumptions. Thomas got mad at Percy because he felt he let him get covered in coal on purpose. Thus ensues an argument. Then when Percy has his moment to take a dip in coal, the narrative doesn't even say why he couldn't stop. And of course, right after that, Thomas feels satisfied with Percy's dilemma. I don't know. I feel like the story of being careful while doing work and not messing around gets overshadowed by an eye for an eye type deal. It was nice that Thomas and Percy set their argument aside after both got covered in coal, but sometimes things don't always work out. They both could have gotten even angrier and caused more damage to each other on purpose. It's still a part of the classic series, but this truthfully feels just as silly as Thomas Goes Fishing. Music has pretty much remained a constant at this point right now. We get the iconic cues for both Thomas and Toby, but that's it. Set pieces, though, have had some major changes, which are definitely something not seen yet. Almost every shot is something different. The bridge Thomas crosses is one. The station where he meets Percy and Toby doesn't look familiar either. The coal hopper scene looks like it might be nearby someplace we've been, but that's also unclear. The meadow area where Thomas drives through is again new. Even the station Thomas and Percy meet at looks like Knapford, but there's only 3 tracks instead of 6. So, I don't know. Lastly, there's this one berth shed Thomas, Toby, and Percy rest in together. This obviously isn't Tidmouth Shed, so where is it? Plus, this shed, I believe, is only shown in this season, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see, though. Oh, and let's not forget, we got that first glimpse of the real troublesome trucks in that one shot. Yeah, get ready, because those little chatterboxes will be causing mayhem very soon. That's it for now, though. Next episode is cows. Thanks for watching.